Hi, I'm Amy Brown, lifetime member of Girl Scouts, and I'm a member of the Farthest North Girl Scout Council resource team. I'm here to walk you through the proposal called Constitutional Amendment Formula for Delegates, which was submitted by Farthest North for the 56th National Council Session agenda. So let's just dive right into things. So here's what we'll be covering during this webinar. First, we're going to review the proposal language. Then we're going to look at how does all of this work? Like, how do all the puzzle pieces fit together? Then we're going to be doing some math and looking at some numbers, so you may want to go get a cup of coffee. Then we're going to look at the second key part of this proposal. And then next, we're going to give a response to the National Board's rationale, and then we'll end things with a couple of Q&As. Now, I normally don't read through PowerPoint slides word for word because that would be pretty boring, but I'm going to be doing it for the next few slides, so bear with me. First of all, the proposal summary. This proposal amends the Constitution to adjust the formula that is used to calculate the number of National Council delegates that are allocated to councils and the USA GSO. It also adds language that makes it clear that the total number of National Council members should stay as close to 1,500 as possible. And now I'm going to read through the text of the proposal very quickly. You can find this in the early alert, the workbook that's coming out in May, or some other places online. So here's the statement of the proposal. It's to amend Article 4, Section 5 of the Constitution by inserting and striking as follows. Formula for delegates. Each local council to which a charter has been issued and remains in force shall be entitled to the following delegates based on the number of girls under its jurisdiction who are members of the Girl Scouts of the United States of America as of September 30th of the year preceding the regular session of the National Council. 2 delegates, 1 additional delegate for up to strike 3,500 and insert 1,000 girls, 1 additional delegate for every strike 3,500 and insert 1,000 girls thereafter. USA Girl Scouts overseas collectively shall be entitled to the number of delegates according to the same formula prescribed for local councils. The prescribed figure of strike 3,500 and insert 1,000 girls may be adjusted when necessary to keep the total membership of the National Council insert as close to but not and strike no larger than 1,500. And the proviso is that this action become effective for the 2026 National Council session. The financial impact will be that no expenditures are anticipated as the total number of delegates to the National Council session will remain unchanged. Okay, so how does this all come together? So what we're going to do is we're going to review some parts of the Constitution and how this proposal fits within it. So first of all, who makes up the National Council? Well, if you look in Section 4 of Article 4 in the Constitution, it states that there's 6 categories. There's delegates elected by councils, delegates from USA GSO, National Board members, National Board Development Committee members, past presidents of GSUSA, and such other persons elected by the National Council. How large is the National Council? And this is also in Section 4 and Article 4 of the Constitution, and it states that the National Council can be no larger than 1,500 members. Who determines the size of the National Council? The size of the National Council is specifically stated in the Constitution, which is 1,500 members. And since the National Council is the only body that can amend the Constitution, it's the National Council who determines the size. How many National Council delegates are allocated to councils? So this language should look familiar since I just read it earlier, but let's go over it again. Each council is entitled to receive 2 delegates, 1 additional delegate up to 3,500 girls, 1 additional delegate for every 3,500 girls after that, and then USA GSO as a collective uses the same numbers. And this is found in Section 5 of Article 4 in the Constitution. So what is the purpose of the prescribed formula number of 3,500 girls? This was the number set by the National Council at the 2008 NCS as a starting point to determine how many more National Council delegates are necessary to reach 1,500 total members. That's what it should be at least. So how is the number of National Council delegates calculated? All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to put the last 2 slides together in action and use 3,500 as a baseline number as a starting point. So let's use a council with 14,000 girls as an example. They get 2 delegates right off the bat and then 1 additional one for just having girls in the council. Then they receive 3 more, as you can see, due to reaching 3,500 3 more times. And that gives them a total of 6 delegates. Well, what happens if there's a membership decline? So what happens if the membership declines from one NCS to the next? So say the membership drops in the same council, it drops to 9,000 over time. The same council under 3,500, this 3,500 formula would get only 4 delegates, as you can see. So how do you fix this? Well, a modified formula is used that tweaks that 3,500 figure. And so in this case, we're going to use 2,000 as an example. Now, as you can see, this bumps the number of delegates up to 6. So the lower the membership, the lower the prescribed number should drop. So who determines if a modified formula should be used? The National Board determines the modified formula. Its intent is to honor the established number of National Council members close to, but no larger than 1,500. All right, so now let's look at the big picture. Starting from 2008, when the formula was last revised through this past membership year, our organization has had a 56% drop in membership numbers. So how has this affected the number of delegates through the years? Okay, so what you're going to see here, this chart, the year, I've got those as the NCS years. The formula is what was used by the National Board to determine the number of delegates allocated. And then obviously the column that says delegates allocated, that's what number was set for that. And you'll also see that those numbers are different than what is in the original proposal, because the proposal was written last year at that time. And what you see here are numbers that were given to us from GSUSA directly. And then the NC total, that stands for the National Council total members, because remember that the National Council includes not just delegates, but National Board members and NBDC members as well. And then throw a couple of past presidents. So right off the bat, you can see that the 3,500 girl number that was set in 2008 NCS couldn't be used the next NCS due to declining membership numbers. And even with that, the number of delegates dropped. But even though membership numbers continued to decline in 2014 and 2017, the same formula was used. And as you can see, the number of delegates continued to drop and didn't even come close to 1,500 members. Then the formula was revised in 2020, and the number of delegates made up a little bit of ground, but not too close to 1,500. And then there's 2023, and I'm just going to let those numbers speak for themselves. So this chart spells out how short we've been over the past 5 NCS. And again, I'll let those numbers speak for themselves, especially the 2023 one. So after crunching a bunch of numbers, here's what we estimate should have been used for the formula. I'm not sure why the National Board decided to use multiples of 500 for their formula. There's no restrictions stating that that's what must be used. So there's no reason the formula couldn't have been tweaked a little more, much like what you see here to get closer to 1,500 numbers. So now let's step back to what the proposal aims to do. It's to reset the starting formula that's more in line with today's membership numbers. The formula of 3,500 girls was set in 2008 when membership was 2.5 million. We're now at approximately 1.1 million. We are way off the mark of 3,500, and the original formula needs to be revisited and revised. We need to be realistic that there's been a significant membership drop. So using 1,000 as the formula for the 2023 NCS would have resulted in approximately 1,300 delegates, and that's a difference of over 400 more delegates. A 900 girl formula would get to a little over 1,400 delegates. Now, in the past year, we've had a membership increase of a little over 4%, which is great. But assuming a very, very optimistic outlook of a 15% membership growth by the 2026 NCS, the formula would rise to only 1,000 girls to get to approximately 1,450 delegates. So now here's what I call the second part of the proposal, and it has to do with the language as close to but not. Now, it's very important to give you a little bit of background with this proposal, and it starts with a proposal to amend sections 4 and 5 in Article 4 of the Constitution that was submitted by the National Board of the 2008 NCS. It was a significant change, but remember, this was a response to the vast number of mergers where councils consolidated from 312 to 112 at the time. So prior to this proposal, the language read, the prescribed figure of 1,800 girls shall be adjusted up or down by 300 or multiples thereof when necessary to keep the total number of local councils and USGSO delegates as close as possible to 2,000, but not in excess of 2,000. An amended version of this proposal passed during the NCS, and just to hit the high points, it lowered the size of the National Council from 2,000 to 1,500 members. The original proposal was 1,000. Councils received 2 delegates versus just 1, and again, that was due to all the mergers. It changed the prescribed figure from 1,800 girls to 3,500 girls. The original proposal wanted 5,000 girls, and the phrase "as close as possible" disappeared. Now, it's our contention that the 2008 National Council did not purposely or intentionally remove the "as close as possible" language, and it was due to the complete rewrite of this section of the Constitution. No mention of that phrase's removals was in the National Board's rationale in the 2008 NCS workbook, nor was it specifically discussed during the NCS itself. Historically, the phrase "as close as possible" has always been a part of the Constitution since a limit was originally placed on the size of the National Council at the 1960 NCS, and it was 4,000 members. That's a lot. So really, by intentionally amending the original proposal to amend it from 1,000 to 1,500 members, the 2008 National Council took it upon good faith that the amended number of 1,500 members would be respected by the National Board because, well, that's what had always been the case historically. However, without the phrase "as close as possible" included in the Constitution, the National Board has interpreted the language to mean any number smaller than 1,500 members. This is evidenced by the fact that the 2023 National Council has less than 1,000 members, which I'd like to point out is even less than originally what the National Board wanted the number to be, what the National Board wanted the number to be in 2008, and the National Council soundly rejected that number. So during the NCS, if an amendment is made to the proposal to strike "as close to but not," then the National Board will be able to continue doing what they're doing now, which is to set the size of the National Council. And that is not what is ordered by the Constitution. It's the National Council's ultimate authority to decide this matter, and it did so in 2008. What's happening now is power is being taken away from the National Council. And as we know, it represents all of us. So to summarize, this is what this proposal will accomplish. It will recalibrate the formula to better reflect membership change. It ensures that the wishes of the 2008 National Council are adhered to, and it reestablishes the authority of the National Council to determine the size of the National Council. So now I'm going to go through a rebuttal to the National Board's rationale to not support this proposal. So in the early alert, the National Board stated, changing the formula is not necessary to achieve the objective of the proposal. The prescribed figure of 3,500 may already be adjusted by the board each triennium. Well, so the original proposal of the prescribed formula, it was an intentional attempt to get the number of delegates as close to what is set in the Constitution. So here's my question: if the prescribed formula number can be changed to whatever the National Board deems it to be, then why did it even bother to submit a proposal to change it in 2008? They also wrote, the proposal assumes that the 2008 National Council session body intended to keep size as close as possible to as close to 1,500 as possible. If that was the intent in 2008, the proposal also assumes 1,500 is the optimal size today, 15 years later. So I'm going to be honest, I'm not really sure what especially the last sentence is going for, but I'm going to make a stab at it. So this sounds like the National Board is hedging its bets. Basically, it sounds like it's saying, well, this proposal is just assuming that the National Council should be close to 1,500 members. And we really don't know if that's the case or not. But just in case they're right, then we don't think it's the optimal size anyway, and it's been 15 years, so this number is outdated. So why would the National Council have bothered to raise the number of the original proposal from 1,000 to 1,500, knowing that removing as close as possible would allow the National Board to set it at 1,000 members anyway? And second, the National Board is admitting right here that it believes it's the one to determine how many members should be in the National Council. This is a complete overstep in authority, as I stated earlier. And as for its second point, I'm not sure why the the National Board feels that just because 15 years has passed, then it's okay to disregard what's in the Constitution. How about we respect our organization's governance procedures? And if the National Board wants the number to be lowered to under 1,000 members, then it can submit a proposal for the 2026 NCS. They also wrote, the originating council does not anticipate any financial implications should the proposal be approved. However, mandating a size as close to 1,500 as possible will increase the cost for some councils who will be accorded larger delegate allocations. Well, first, it's up to councils to determine how much they want to spend to send their delegation to the NCS. Councils aren't obligated to send their entire delegation, so it's up to them to decide how much they want to incur, whether it's by not sending their entire delegation, which again, they're not obligated to do, or to look at travel and accommodation costs. And secondly, ignoring what is stated in the Constitution by coming up with reasons to the contrary, whatever they are, is a violation of our governance documents. And when an organization does that, it puts itself at legal risk. So here's some Q&As. How many councils supported this proposal for the NCS agenda? 21 councils sent in endorsement forms. Well, what if membership continues to rise? So you might say, do we really need to change the formula? We can just assume that membership will continue to try to recover from the losses during the pandemic. Well, that would be great, but we need to be realistic about membership numbers and take that into account. So assuming we stayed at a steady 4.7 growth rate, it would take about a decade to get back to membership year 2019 numbers. And that's a pretty long time. Well, can't we just trust the National Board to use the right formula? Well, history has shown that they have not for the past 5 NCSs. And not only that, there is no recourse if the National Board doesn't respect what's in our Constitution. Putting in as close to but not language is the only way to guarantee that the number of 1,500 members will be respected. Well, what if I think the National Board should determine the number of National Council members? Well, that's not what this proposal is about, and we should respect our governance documents as written instead of working around them or fudging interpretations. Since the number of National Council members is specifically stated in the Constitution, as we went through earlier, and only the National Council has the authority to amend it, that means the National Council reserves the right to determine the number of members. We need to do things the right way. And again, as I just stated, if there is a wish for the National Board to control the number of members, then that would involve writing a proposal for the 2026 NCS and let the National Council decide the matter. What if I believe the size of the National Council should be less than 1,500 members? Like with previous question, changing the number of National Council members is not what this proposal is about, and a separate NCS proposal would be necessary. Well, this is the end of the presentation. Hopefully this has been helpful in your research and discussions of your proposal within your delegation. If you have any questions, just submit them to the National Delegate website, or you can submit them directly to the National Board Office at boardoffice@girlscouts.org. Thank you for serving as a National Delegate or alternate, and we'll see you in Orlando.